The Chicago White Sox lost to the Dodgers on Wednesday night 4-1 after Tuesday's win against LA, which gave the White Sox a 3-game winning streak. Tony Russa decided to screw around with the lineup on Wednesday and bat Leury Garcia in the leadoff spot. Let's just say that didn't go well. Johnny Cueto held his own, but was given very little support. Aside from Jake Burger, the offense was unfortunately pretty dormant. Sox go for the series win on Thursday with Dylan Cease on the mound.
You are Locked On White Sox. You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong, diehard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Hey, I really appreciate you letting me steal some of your time to talk White Sox. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, it's Dylan Cease Day. Hopefully it's a day full of strikeouts and very few walks. Jake Burger continues to be one of the few bright spots offensively. But first, if it's not broke, why fix it? Wednesday night, the White Sox lost to the Dodgers 4-1. State of the Sox right now, 26-28. Chasing the Twins in Cleveland in the AL Central. The White Sox apparently have the easiest remaining schedule in all of baseball. But as Steve Stone put it so well on the telecast on Wednesday night, it's one thing to have it, another thing to take advantage of it. Very confusing looking at the lineups before the game on Wednesday. I'm sure you were a little confused as well. What was Tony Russa thinking? White Sox coming into the game with a 3-game winning streak. During that 3-game winning streak, we started to see some consistency, especially with Danny Mendick and Andrew Vaughn at the top of the lineup. Obviously, Jake Burger getting some at-bats. And that did not happen. Leury Garcia was hitting in the leadoff spot. Danny Mendick was in the 9th spot. And Andrew Vaughn was given a day off. Tony Russa was questioned in the postgame. It was a very bizarre postgame presser. I'm sure you're going to be able to find some audio, some clips. He was questioned in the postgame about why he changed the lineup after Tuesday night's win and, of course, the 3-game winning streak that the Sox were on. His answer, folks, was incoherent, and I'm not trying to make fun. I could not understand his reasoning and what he was trying to explain. He seemed confused. He seemed a little taken aback and, of course, a little defensive that he was asked this. He stopped and started a few times when trying to answer the question, and I don't think he really ever finished answering the question. He just kind of trailed off. It was very bizarre. Very troubling, actually. There was also some video, I don't know if you saw it on social media, from the Los Angeles Dodgers telecast. And the announcers were talking about right after Leury Garcia struck out, which we'll get to more of throughout the podcast. And the Dodgers announcers are questioning why Leury Garcia was leading off with the numbers and the stats that are available to the White Sox. Again, it's spot on as we were all shaking our heads as Sox fans. To make matters kind of worse, there was an article in the Tribune. I don't know if you saw it, by Paul Sullivan. This was Wednesday. I read it, and this was the title of Paul Sullivan's article. Fire Tony La Russa? Not happening. So Chicago White Sox fans need to learn to just deal with it. I believe Mr. Sullivan wrote this article in response to the Joe Madden firing, to the Joe Girardi firing, and a lot of folks, a lot of Sox fans thinking, well, maybe Tony La Russa is the next to go. Obviously, I've talked about it on this podcast several times. Tony La Russa is going nowhere, especially right now. It's just not happening. So my question to Paul Sullivan is why write the article? It's such an obvious thing. And the fact that Sox fans just have to learn to deal with it. I mean, what do you think Sox fans have been doing for most of Jerry's rule? We have been trying to learn to deal with it. It's been frustrating. I thought it was a pretty lazy article. I mean, I read the article. Nothing new was learned. It almost seemed like an excuse just to kind of bash Sox fans that want some change. But again, with that article coming out, it just, again, Tony La Russa is untouchable. And it just felt like he used that opportunity to change the lineups. James Fegan from The Athletic wrote a little bit about it. He posted some stuff on Twitter before the game on Wednesday. He said Tony La Russa acknowledged Leury Garcia's slow start, alluded to his struggles in cold weather, and said when he's wild and woolly, he chases pitches that are tough to center, but that he's feeling better. He's a very talented guy. Tony La Russa went on also to say that it was a planned day of rest for Andrew Vaughn, and mentioned he's coming off a high-effort series on turf in Tampa. Tony La Russa said Vaughn will play first, most likely on Thursday. Dodgers are throwing a lefty, so it's all about those matchups once again. So Garcia in the leadoff spot on Wednesday. Coming into the game, his last 7 games, this was his slash line, 167, 160, 167. Vaughn on the bench, as we just mentioned. Robert was in the 2 spot. Jake Berger, it was nice to see him continuing to be in the lineup. He was DH. Gavin Sheets in right field. I guess it's all about the matchups once again. They want that lefty. To Sheets' credit, he did have a double in the game. Pollock in left field. Good to see him starting. And then Mendick, as we mentioned, dropped from the leadoff spot that he was thriving in the last few games down to the 9th spot, which is also called Tony La Russa's second leadoff spot. Mendick, and during his last 7 games, this is his slash line, 400, 423, and 440. Yeah, that's the guy you want to bury in the 9th spot. So NBC Sports Chicago, during their pregame, they showed some graphics, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in this podcast episode. I'm sure you've seen them. They showed some numbers about, this is the comparison of Leury Garcia hitting first compared to how he hits 9th. And it just troubling. I mean, they're completely lopsided. Again, it's not an enormously huge sample size, but still, you've got numbers. And it kind of goes to the point I was talking about last week when the White Sox and La Russa seemed to look at numbers against Manoah in Toronto about what lefties do, and they stacked the lineup with lefties thinking that they were going to be smarter than the situation. Well, then how come you don't look at these numbers with how Garcia hits in the leadoff spot compared to where he hits 9th? Why don't you pay attention to those numbers? I just don't get the lack of attention or the bizarre selective attention that the White Sox and Tony La Russa give. Very troubling. Jake Berger, though, has stayed hot, and he's really one of the only guys hitting at this point. I'm also going to tell you more about why Leury Garcia should never lead off again. More on that in a moment. Don't you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? How about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top? What if I told you that you can have all that chewy, chocolatey deliciousness plus 17 grams of protein? You're in luck because caramel brownie bars are available at built.com right now, and you got to act fast because they are a fan favorite. Forget about dessert. These are better than dessert. Plus, The macros are unreal: 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar. I would replace a regular brownie with Built's Caramel Brownie Bar in a heartbeat. The best part? Caramel brownie bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. With Built, you don't have to sacrifice tasty for healthy. You can have both. And all of Built's bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of healthy benefits. With Built, tasty is the new healthy. Go to built.com to get your box of caramel brownie bars now. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Hey, we have an important favor to ask you. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Okay, how about that White Sox offense? Now, the Los Angeles Dodgers, they have got pitching. Their starting pitchers have a 2.58 ERA coming into Wednesday night's game. That's number one in all of baseball. We kind of knew Tony Gonsolin was going to be a difficult pitcher. It was going to be a tough task for our White Sox hitters. He was very tough. He only gave up 3 hits, and 2 of them were by Jake Burger. So let's talk about that first inning. Leury Garcia, the legend, leading off, in that number 1 spot, and he pops out to the catcher to get things going. I'll take you to the second inning. After a Yaz strikeout, Burger hits a slider and rips it into left field. That was one of, obviously, the few hits that Burger had against Gonsolin. In the fourth, Robert gets hit by a pitch, steals second, and then is left stranded. Robert, though, 8 for 9 on stolen bases this year. As a team, the Chicago White Sox are 27 for 29. That's best in the league in terms of only being caught stealing twice. Gonsolin around 50 pitches after the 5th inning started. That's good. I mean, he was dealing. 5th inning is when the White Sox got a little something going. Jake Burger, of course, leads off with a Burger bomb. Sheets then with a double. So you got nobody out and Pollock up. He walks. You got first and second, nobody out with Danny Mendick up. Now he's again hitting in that 9th position, that second leadoff position. And Jason Benetti and Steve Stone were talking about some strategy at this point. Benetti asked Stone, well, do you maybe bunt in this situation, get guys over to second and third? And Stone said, I really don't think that is a situation or at least a successful thing to do because of how Leury Garcia is hitting. And there goes some of the strategy when you've got Leury Garcia in that leadoff spot. Wondering if you would have flipped those, you'd have Leury Garcia maybe being able to bunt guys over, and then Mendick, who's swinging a hot bat, could drive guys in. But it is what it is. Mendick hit a ground ball to shortstop. There was a force at second. So you got runners at first and third, and then the legend is up. And you're really only strongest as your weakest link. I mean, he strikes out, which is not a surprise. At the end of the day, really, Leury Garcia was just not set up for success. I'm going to talk about some numbers in a little bit. He should not be in that leadoff position. I don't quite know what Russa was trying to do. If it's because he's a switch hitter, he's a lefty, and it's all about those matchups, a lefty against a righty and the other way around. But the pressure you're putting on a guy who doesn't succeed in a leadoff spot, I just don't get it. It was extremely confusing, and it was talked about a lot in the postgame with Chuck, Podsednik, and Ozzie. Robert ended up popping up to end the threat in the fifth. Could have got much more, but the Sox only walked away with 1 run. Here's some final offensive lines for the White Sox. Garcia was 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. He struck out in the 8th, and you could hear the crowd booing. And this is the clip for the Dodgers announcers. They went, kind of confused as well of like, why is Leury Garcia leading off? So find it if you can find it. It's again, it kind of galvanizes the point we as Sox fans were scratching our head over before the game. Yasmani Grandal was 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. He had a flare over the shortstop's head. Hopefully he gets going. I don't get, something must be wrong with him. No Vaughn, of course, in the lineup. Hopefully he can get right back into things on Thursday. Robert, hitless in the series so far. He hasn't done much at all. Kind of quietly, you're looking at Mendick, you're looking at Berger and Vaughn and Robert, and of course Moncada. Boy, Moncada's lifeless as well. Sox offensive line goes like this: 1 run, 4 hits, 1 walk, 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. So, in the post-game show, Ozzie was defending Tony La Russa because, and this is how I understood it, he said, well, Danny Mendick is just a kid, and you're going to put a kid in the leadoff spot against Gonsolin, who's been so great. It's better that you put Leury Garcia, who's a veteran in the league, up there. And Chuck and Scott Budsednik seem to think much differently. Here are some of the numbers that NBC Sports Chicago showed before the game, and they showed these numbers after the game as well. These are the splits with Leury Garcia hitting first and then hitting ninth. So on base percentage, hitting first, Leury Garcia 0.188. On base percentage, hitting ninth, 364. Okay, huge difference there. Slugging, hitting first, 188. Slugging, hitting ninth, 571. OPS hitting first, 376. OPS hitting ninth, 935. And Leury Garcia, batting average hitting first, 188. Average hitting ninth, 381. So those are the numbers. They're not even close. Again, not an enormous sample size, but enough. If you're looking at numbers, and the Sox seem to look at numbers, it's selective. What you pay attention to is selective, I guess. I don't get it, especially after the win on Tuesday. We're talking on this podcast. You've been probably noticing it as a fan, talking to other, Sox fans that you've been watching the game with or texting back and forth. Finally, a little bit of consistency. Look, we got some patterns forming here. And to just kind of shuffle it all up and just, now I'm just going to try to go with a different mentality. I just didn't get it. Los Angeles Dodgers, their offense, 4 runs, 6 hits, 3 home runs. If you're going to take any silver lining, any moral victory out of it for these first 2 games, Mookie Betts was 0 for 4 on Wednesday, and he's 1 for 8 in the series. So the Sox have been able to quiet Betts, and really the Sox pitching has been able to quiet a very hot hitting Los Angeles Dodgers team. I mean, skunked him on Tuesday and only gave up 4 runs. On Wednesday night. That's not bad at all. Johnny Cueto, he was more than serviceable. Despite Wednesday's loss, the Sox have done a nice job containing LA's offense. I'm going to tell you why it can continue on Thursday. More on that in a moment. So Johnny Cueto was on the mound. First inning, he got quick, 2 quick outs, and then Trey Turner bloops a single in short center field. You just had a weird feeling in your stomach of Dodgers have life. It found no man's land out there in outfield. And then Will Smith jacks a 2-run home run, and just like that, it's 2-0 Dodgers. You're so close to getting out of the inning, and a bloop and a blast puts you down 2-0 before you even come up to bat. In the second, Bellinger leads off with a home run. It's now 3-0 Dodgers. Cueto threw 41 pitches through 2 innings, had 3 strikeouts and 0 walks. In the fifth, he started to settle down, probably throwing more pitches than he's been used to. I kind of felt that from a Cueto start. Again, he hasn't had a ton of Cueto starts in a White Sox. There hasn't been a ton of Cueto starts in a White Sox uniform, but still threw a lot. He was at 77 pitches after 5. Cueto's final line, 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. He gave up 2 home runs through 90 pitches total. His ERA 3.23. Again, a pretty good outing from Cueto. He just didn't get any support. Sousa comes in for the 7th, Foster in the 8th. They were lights out. And then Ruiz in the 9th gave up a Trey Turner home run. And there you go, 4-1 Dodgers. Thursday is a day game. Dylan Cease going against Tyler Anderson. Anderson is a left-handed pitcher, and boy, no rest for the weary. He has been very good for the Dodgers. He is 7-0, has not given up an earned run in his last 3 starts. That's 20 innings and 19 strikeouts in those 20 innings. You might be saying to yourself, well, he's going to be on the south side. How is he on the road? He's very good on the road. He is 3-0 with a 1.63 ERA. Dylan Cease, his last start was in Tampa last weekend. He went 4 2/3, gave up a hit, 2 runs, but 0 of them were earned. This was the game he had 7 walks and only 5 strikeouts. He was able to, kind of walk that line, but it's not how you want to live, giving up 7 walks. Hopefully he can calm down, limit the pitches, get ahead of guys, and limit that walk total. In this season, 2022, Dylan Cease is 4-2 with a 3.39 ERA. He hasn't given up an earned run in his last 2 starts, and this will be Dylan's first time seeing the Dodgers. Folks, thank you so much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Sox, and you can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan. Just call him Sully. Brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up on the next episode, I'll recap Game 3, the series finale of this Dodgers series, hopefully talking about a White Sox winner and an outstanding Dylan Cease performance. Hey, I appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.